Hello everyone, Namaste. I hope you all are doing good and your studies are going on well. So today is 13th of December and we couldn't be more proud today as 18-year-old from Chennai, D. Gukesh has made the history for us. How and why we'll be looking into today's Analyst, along with which for in-depth analysis we have taken up universal health care in the first article. In the second article, we have taken up recent Supreme Court guideline on the places of worship cases because of its rising suits in the court. Then we will simplify 5 other articles, enriching them with prelims boosters and practice question for you. And to make the best out of the discussion, do not forget to download the handout PDF from the comment box below. So let's get started. So hello students, so we are going to start our discussion with an incredible quote that I came across in today's newspaper. It says that somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. And this happens most often with fortunate aspirants like us, who have to read about the entire UPSC syllabus. We have got a lot to know, lot of incredible things to be discovered. Some of them we'll be discovering in today's current affair analysis. So let's start with the first discussion, which is about an editorial analysis on universal healthcare, which needs to be more responsive. How will it be made more responsive and what exactly is universal healthcare? We are going to dissect everything in today's analyst. Now, the author tells a very important thing. See, universal health coverage, whatever you think of it, should be about systems that guarantee healthcare. So, healthcare should be at the center and not just building the medical centers. Of course, infrastructure deficit is a real problem in the Indian healthcare scenario. That is a different thing, but that is not the all-in-all thing. So, we need to take care of, or we need to bring into centrality the care part of it, and cares could be of different kind. There is not just the curative care for which we go to the OPDs, for which we rush to the hospitals. There is preventive care. There is a pain management related palliative care. There is rehabilitative care, restorative care, curative care, of course, right? So it should be an all-encompassing thing of which we all should be getting universal coverage. Okay, this is about universal health care. So we are going to analyze this editorial. So first things first, students, what is a universal health coverage? To make you visualize it better, let me tell you the story of Uncle Golu. So Uncle Golu used to be always stressed and hypertensive about his degrading health conditions because of the aging ailments. He also suspected that he might have developed TB also. So one day, stressed of all the things, he went for his afternoon nap. He woke up heavily coughing, but fortunately, Asha worker came for a routine checkup into his house and gave him the free of cost advice that he should be going for so and so test and should be taking these medicines on priority, on urgent basis. Immediately he went to the diagnostic care. In the diagnostic care, he not only got the free diagnostics of the TB condition the suspected TB condition, but also got some funds from the Nikshay Poshan scheme, right? Then when he went to the hospitals after taking his lab reports, there he received, in the government hospital, he received the free of cost checkup as well. Now after the checkup is done, after the nurses and everybody being very hospitable with him, then he was transferred not to his home, but for the recovery and for the pain management and for him to, deal with his psychological stresses as well, he was subjected to a yoga center. Now, one day in the yoga center, after doing all the asanas, he finally went to Shavasana. And the moment he woke up, he got back into the reality that nothing of it is stress-free, especially the Indian healthcare system. But what if his dream was converted into a reality, which means that the healthcare now has become available of all sorts, which means when I talk about the healthcare, it is not just about me free from the disease or free from the ailments, but it is an availability of the complete well-being when it comes to physical health, mental health and also social health. And this definition is not made by me, students. It is made by WHO, the premier organization which takes care of the health globally. So we have understood the concept of health. Now, when I provide this healthcare in the form of 3 A's, which is I make it accessible for everyone, irrespective of where are they living, what is their age, what is their caste, creed, etc. It is accessible to all. The quality healthcare is available to all, and most importantly, it is pocket friendly. It is also affordable to all. And the main idea behind these 3 A's, behind this core philosophy, is that Health should be, and it is in fact, the most important fundamental right that is given to every citizen, every global citizen. And taking this into regard, that it is an intrinsic fundamental right, healthcare should be made accessible, available and affordable, and that is the core philosophy behind universal health coverage. It could be provided via multiple means, but the most famous means, which is given by a lot of countries like Germany, like USA, Canada, in some cases India also, is in the form of their insurance coverage, health insurance coverage. Okay, in USA, you will see there is a mandatory insurance cover, everybody has to pay. In the case of Germany, you will see that the Germany itself creates a fund for from the taxpayers' money for insurance. And in the case of India, we have got the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which also tends to provide this coverage, but it is provided only to the bottommost 40% of the population, not to the entire population. But when we start providing it to 100% of the population, especially to the most disadvantaged group, especially to the people who are aging universally, then we will finally realize the aim of universal health coverage. Now, this is not a new idea. It got started, and in fact, it got pioneered by WHO only via Alma Ata conference in 1978. This one is important because it has been asked in the match the column of prelims paper. Okay, here they said that there should be a health for all, and it was agreed by all the countries altogether. But of course, when you want to achieve health for all, it not just requires commitment, but it also requires a lot of funding from the nations. When it comes to funding, when we see at nations like USA and Canada, they have funding of up to 17% of their total GDP. Whereas on the other hand, there are some, low income countries and also some emerging economies, for example, India, who give less than 2% of their GDP for the healthcare coverage. Now, in order to make it a universal commitment, it was also included under the Sustainable Development Goals. We all know that it is under goal number 3, and specifically under point 2 and point 1, where the coverage of essential healthcare services and reducing the healthcare spending should be the goal. And this is how we'll be providing the universal healthcare coverage. Not only that, there was a GAP plan, Global Action Plan for Healthy Lives and Well-being, which was signed by most of the countries in 2019. And this was the first ever United Nations high-level meeting on universal health coverage. So which means that everybody is very serious about it. And now India is also surprisingly growing very serious about it. And we should be. There are multiple reasons as to why we need the universal healthcare coverage. First and foremost, we know that we are the most populous country in the world, and still the amount of money our government is putting into the healthcare sector, which is a very natural fundamental right of all the citizen, is very, very less. As a result of this, we see a lot of issues. One is the infrastructure outcome gap. So you must have heard of many governmental schemes. For example, the National Health Mission is there, Ayushman Bharat scheme is there, gigantic missions. And still, their effectiveness, their outcome have not proved out to be very beneficial. It was suggested that according to the data of CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the National Health Mission, while it created a lot of healthcare medical centers, but about 80% of them were having substandard facilities, not even the basic primary services which are provided at PHCs, primary healthcare center, not even that were provided by them. Next, CAG report also recently highlighted that about 9 lakh of the Ayushman cards were registered by the same number, which means misuse of this benefit is also happening. Then this report also highlighted that many people who were already claimed to be dead on the Ayushman Bharat card, they are still availing the services. So which means that a lot of wastage of the monetary resources are happening. So there is a very big gap between the infrastructure, what is promised and what is actually delivered or what is coming out as an outcome. This is the first failure of Indian healthcare system. Second, we have widened healthcare gap. It is worse in the case of rural and urban areas because of more availability, more accessibility. It is better and it is more affordable for the urban people to get it. But health is even more important and even equally important for the rural people also, especially living in the remote areas like hilly areas, tribal areas. Now, for them to get it, they need to have data, they need to have internet services, and only about 40%, only in fact, less than 60% of the people in the rural areas have got the internet access also. So how will they get benefit of remote services, telemedicines, etc.? So even if, say, let's say government has got e-Sanjeevani, government is making its effort, but let's say there is no infrastructure only, there's no internet only, how will the rural people get this benefit, right? Next is the lack of preventive healthcare. If you see the total pie of our healthcare, na, only just less than 17% is taken for the preventive healthcare, which is the most important stage of the healthcare management, right? Which is highly ignored in India. Even if you talk about the Ayushman Bharat mission, it primarily focuses on the secondary and the tertiary healthcare facilities only. Not saying that it is not having the healthcare and the wellness centers for primary services. For primary services, India has primary healthcare centers, but they are in looming and dooming conditions, right? So we need to ramp up on this. Second is mental health, which is a neglected crisis in India. It is said that 60 to 70 million of the people with a growing rate of 25% is there in India, which is suffering from one or the other kind of mental disorders. And that is also a neglected crisis, because even if we are scoring well in the number of doctor to pupil ratio in India, still, because there is one doctor per 800 pupils as compared to WHO data, which says there should be one doctor for 1000 pupils. But at the same time, when it comes to the psychologists or the psychiatrists, they are very less in India. Second is the out-of-pocket expenditure trap. So you must also know that in India, about 40% of the total healthcare is coming, or healthcare expenditure is spied up from the out-of-pocket expenditure only, and this is the main cause of pushing many people into poverty. In fact, in a data it has been said that about 17% of the people directly fell into the trap of poverty. Their children are rendered education less because they are trapped in the loans, they couldn't pay off for their fees. So it leads to degradation of a lot of human indicator performances, right? Human development indicator performances. And therefore, out-of-pocket expenditure is also very high in India. Now, in order to make our India healthy, happy and beautiful, we need to work on all these dimensions, which means, again, working on the sectors of affordability, increasing availability and accessibility. And therefore is the need of universal healthcare coverage in India. So government, of course, has been taking a lot of strides in this regard. So what are the government booster schemes? So first are the preventive measures, mostly coming in the form of the vaccination or the safe motherhood intervention program. So we have got the Janani Suraksha Yojana, which provides for the institutionalized delivery of the mothers, and then vaccination for the pregnant mothers and for children, which specially comes in the form of Indradhanush program, right? Then we tend to provide quality medicine at affordable prices using the Jan Aushadhi mission, then correcting regional imbalances, and with the help of Ayushman Bharat digital mission, which also gives you a health ID. It also provides an Aabha number, Ayushman Bharat healthcare account number, and also providing telemedicine services, for example, e-Sanjeevani, right? And some mobile hospitals are also there. So this will help us to correct the regional imbalances in the healthcare sector. Then we have got a national mental health program as well, and also we vouch for universal healthcare. See, when you talk about the universal healthcare in India, the main stalwart mission is the National Health Mission, which is divided into two branches. One is the urban sector, so National Rural Health Mission and National Urban Health Mission. Okay, this is to facilitate the accessibility of the healthcare services in both rural and urban areas. This will also help us to lessen up the regional imbalances, right? And then the second one is the National Healthcare Policy of 2017. So these are the two stalwarts mission for universal healthcare coverage. But when you talk about proper universal healthcare, it is still not fully functional in India, because if you talk about the most important scheme of the government, which is the Jan Arogya Mission Ayushman Bharat scheme, it has got two components. The main component generally works for providing a healthcare insurance for in the packet of a family, 5 lakh rupees per family per year, for tertiary and for secondary and tertiary healthcare facilities only. That is for the operational condition, the curative care. And for primary healthcare centers, they are setting up healthcare and wellness centers as well. So you will see that it is only available for, the rural population, for the lowermost 40% of the population. Now, as you can see that there are major lacunas that you can still figure out, major deficits still figure out from this. First is that there is an avoidance of the mental issues that are going on especially among the youth of the country. Second, the geriatric care that is required, because as you know that about 1/4, 25% of the total aged population is living in India only, and still the number of geriatrics is only 20 geriatric we have for 1 lakh population. That number is really very low and depressive. So we need to focus on these two areas. Still, we need to focus on the palliative care, pain management area, recovery area. We need to focus on preventive health care, right? Now, when we are talking about the universal health care, could there be a negative side of it? Yes, I'll tell you why. Because do you know that about 5% of the total greenhouse gas emission in the world is coming from the healthcare sector, because of the waste management, because of the process of creating active pharmaceutical ingredients for you. All of these requires a lot of pollutants to be emitted into the environment. So when we intend to enhance this universal healthcare, of course, we'll be producing more products. So we'll be producing more emissions as well. This could also be a problematic area. So the need of the hour is not just to have universal healthcare, but sustainable universal healthcare. Okay? Now the next question that will come to your mind: if universal healthcare is so important, then what are the impediments and what are the challenges? Why are we not achieving it yet? Again, the challenges lies in the 3 A's only: lack of availability, lack of accessibility, and affordability. So first is the systemic issue. Systemic issue, first of all, that this area, the healthcare sector, is chronically underfunded in India. How much share of the GDP are we allotting for it? Less than 2%, which is very, very less as compared to some of the economies like USA giving 17%, China giving 15% of their GDP. We are performing very low. In fact, you will be happy to know that some of the parameters have actually boosted up after these government interventions. Okay, so these are that out-of-pocket expenditure in India. So please see how much important government spending is for us. It is said that for $1 of government spending into healthcare sector, $20 of increase in income growth happens. And not only that, it was seen that just because our government expanded its GDP contribution in healthcare sector from 1.1% in 2009 to 1.9% currently, it has been seen that the out-of-pocket expenditure has drastically gone down. So before, it was 2009, it was 69%. And you know how much is it currently? Just because government has just leveraged 0.9% of the GDP, it is now 34% of the total GDP. So out-of-pocket expenditure, though it is still on the higher side, but still has got reduced to a great extent. So these are some of the data. Now, second thing is there's an unregulated private sector. More than 75% of the OPD patient go where? Go to the private clinic, and they demand exorbitantly high prices, and they also do illegal practices. What is the reason? Because they are not properly regulated. Even if we have got the Clinical Establishments Act of 2010, under which all of them have to be registered, still many of them escape that route, do not get registered, do not get regulated by the government, and therefore enhances the out-of-pocket expenditure of the country. Next is the poor quality of the healthcare. In many doctors and in many hospitals, you must have seen complaints coming of poor healthcare, neglected healthcare, many COVID patients dying out of neglected healthcare. That was a news very often we heard about, right? So poor quality is also an issue in India. Next is the lack of accessibility. Even if you have got quality healthcare somewhere, some good intervention in the form of, let's say, we have got a recently CAR T B cell therapy. The question is, how accessible will it be for the different areas, for the different people of different areas of the country? So first impediment is lack of financial resources. If everything is so expensive, then how will I be able to afford it? Second is the lack of human resources. Doctor to pupil ratio is very less. Nurses, care management, the nurses to pupil ratio is even further less. So that is an issue. Next is the urban-rural divide which is going on. Then there is affordability gap. Then there are other lags. For example, preventive healthcare is absent. Accountability is not there. Awareness is not there. So therefore, my dear students, in order to make our Uncle Golu's dream a reality, we need to follow up, or we need to care the right way by following these suggestions. First and foremost, we need to move from sick care towards the health care, which means don't just focus on the curative sector, but the GDP that we are giving, the part of GDP that we are giving to the healthcare should now be focusing more on the preventive side. Preventive side using the traditional medicines. We've got a huge repository of it. The Ayush system is already there in India. So we need to incorporate that inherently into our healthcare system and make them more affordable. Next is increasing the affordability. How this can be done? By first of all increasing the government expenditure. We have seen $1 of government expenditure corresponds to $20 increase in the income of any family. So this will improve the overall health of not just a person but of the economy as well. Next is improving the access and infrastructure in the rural areas. This can be done more so by adopting models which are taken up by Kashmir and northeast states like Sikkim and of Tamil Nadu, where they have mobile hospitals so that institutional deliveries can be carried out quickly. In any emergency provision there will be telemedicine for consultations. So these things are required, special focus given on rural areas. Next is UHC must include the elderly population. I've already told you the stat, 1/4 of the people are there, elderly geriatric are there in India only, but the geriatric treatment is in very minuscule condition. So focus on that, focus on the mental health conditions, focus on bridging the rural and urban divide, and also allow public-private partnership, because if you want to bring efficiency into the system, private sector is required to a greater extent. Now, here a case of Narayana could be seen. Narayana system of Narayana institutes and their hospitals, especially relating to the heart care or the cardiac related issues. So similar models can be incorporated, because they not only do philanthropy CSR activities by making the services more affordable, but they are also having better doctors, more efficient doctors in many cases, right? So we have understood that universal health coverage requires healthcare across multiple domains: preventive, palliative, restorative, rehabilitative, and curative. Okay, moving to the next topic, and before that I've got a question for you ranging for 150 words. Fight for it, fight for the 10 marks, and let us see how you're performing. Okay, now our next topic is about a recent Supreme Court guideline as a follow-up on the ongoing places of worship row. So recently we know that the 3 judges Supreme Court bench was formed. It was headed by the Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna, and it has recently barred the civil courts. Please remember, not the high courts or the Supreme Court, but the civil courts from registering fresh suits challenging the ownership of the places of worship. Now, so in a series of coincidences, yet again, whenever my analyst comes, this topic also comes up. So just as pollution is not leaving Delhi, this topic is not leaving yours truly. So anyway, catching up on the previous context, we have already read about what is the Places of Worship Act and who ruled it out. It was ruled in the time of P.V. Narasimha Rao, and P.V. Narasimha Rao was in news recently. Do you remember why? Try to recall and let me know. Next, prohibits conversion of any place of worship before, and like it has set a deadline date, and that deadline date is that of the independence. So this is August 15, 1947. So the religious character will be maintained. The problem lies because of certain exemptions. Now, why Supreme Court is barring the civil court? Because recently a lot of civil courts have become very proactive in not just registering the cases, but also issuing orders of survey or issuing notices without even hearing the second party, and this has caused a lot of constitutional problems. And therefore it was in light of the recent Sambhal, Uttar Pradesh case of Shahi Jama Masjid. It was created during Babur reign and the Babur Trinity. The Babri Masjid recently demolished, Panipat Mosque and the Shahi Jama Masjid, all of them were created by Babur only, by demolishing, allegedly by demolishing the Hindu temples over them. Okay, and the Hindu temple that was demolished in this case was the Harihar temple, and here we are talking about the district of Sambhal in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, similarly a lot of suits started coming up. For example, the Kamal Maula Mosque of Dhar, your Gyan Vapi Mosque, so all of them have been under litigation, which is also causing a lot of pendency of cases because of confusion regarding this particular act. So in order to decode this act, Supreme Court has finally set up a 3 judges bench. Now, the other related disputes, this has been featured in the explained section of Indian Express today, so we'll be looking into it. First is the Shahi Jama Masjid of Sambhal. The second is of Jaunpur. Then the next is Atala Mosque, Jaunpur. Pardon me for any error in the pronunciation. So herein a Devi temple was supposed to be there, and it was it was possessed by the Muslim rulers, and so on and so forth. So for the case of Madhya Pradesh, Dhar, Kamal Maula Bhojshala complex, the Gyan Vapi Mosque of Varanasi service still undergoing, and then the Shamsi Jama Masjid of Budon, and then the Quwwatul Islam Mosque. And this one is important. Can you tell me who has constructed the Quwwatul Islam Mosque and the Adhai Din Ka Jhopda Mosque? Can you tell me which ruler of Delhi Sultanate has created both of them? Now, all of these regions have been contested along with some other Shahi Idgah mosques of Mathura. Then in Lucknow, we have Tile Wali Masjid. Ajmer Sharif Dargah is also contested. We read in the previous analyst also. Then the Malali Juma Masjid of Mangaluru. So, across different parts of the country, especially the Hindu ruling belt, we are seeing a lot of petitions coming in the form of challenging the nature of or the place of worship. And of course, we need to understand that we are a region which was invaded by the Persian, by the Turkish, by the Islamic invaders, and eventually because of their policies they encroached upon many Hindu temples. But now we have accumulated that as a part of our enriched history only. So if we start digging onto one temple, if we start giving one exception or one mosque, then we will have to excavate many of the areas, many of the places of worship, right? This can create a lot of social tensions, communal tensions, political tensions, economic tensions in many ways. So the key solution is first of all to read and to interpret the Places of Worship Act correctly. This act came in 1991. Section 3 is the one which prohibits the conversion of any place of worship either in full part or in the half part, right? I've already told you this is a sanctum. You cannot even take half part of it to worship or to pray to your God. Okay, this is a very wrongful idea of today's temples of India or today's places of worship of India. But anyway, it is given in section 3. Next is section 4.1, which ensures that there is a cutoff date and the sanctity, the place, the retention of the identity will be maintained from this date. It will not be changed. Next, it provides a certain exception in section 5. Section 4 you will read on your own, right? Section 5 provides us some of the exception. Most important exception, the Ayodhya case. Okay, by demolishing the Babri Masjid. Any case which is taken up by the Archaeological Survey of India and it is given up and it is, an archaeologically important site under this particular act. Then any suit which has been finally disposed of. So these cases are the exceptions to it. And then of course anybody who is still trying to impinge upon these places of worship and their character, they will be given certain penalties. For example, imprisonment up to 3 years and some fine as well. Now the first question that comes to our mind is that if it is already prohibited, then why are the inquiries going on? Because it is allowed. So inquiry, according to Supreme Court May Judgment 2022, inquiries can be allowed unless and until they don't lead to the change in the religious character, which means you can conduct the survey, you can conduct the inquiry, but eventually it should not lead to the ultimate change in the religious character. Okay? Next, petitioner argument. So petitioner and the counter argument generally debate about the nature of this act only. That this act is impediment to seeking justice for the historical wrongs. This is what the Hindu parties would say if they are claiming their place. Let's say the Muslim parties are on the counter argument and they will say that this is, this act is very important to prevent the misuse of history, to oppress the present and the future generation, because they have not made those things, right? So why should they be suffering? Why should they be compromising with their places of worship, right? Both of them make sense. Most importantly, it limits the judicial review because it says that once a decision is made by the court, it cannot be gone for the judicial review, right? Next is it also impacts the secularism. It compromises with the Article 25, 26, 14 of the Indian Constitution, and of course the main concern is that there are certain exemptions, and once an exemption invites a lot of other exemptions. Okay, so what to do about it? How to manage historical grievances vis-a-vis also managing the constitutional values. So first is we need to have a clarity and a definitive guideline on the applicability of this particular act. All of this we have already read in the previous analyst. I'm not going to explain it in much detail. Next is preventing the local court overreach. This Supreme Court has done with this guideline. It has restricted the civil court. Third is to prevent the misuse for ideological and electoral purposes, which completely divert away from the entire topic. Next is emphasize the shared cultural and historical heritage. And as I have already told you, that we need to create places of worship which are secular in nature, which are there to provide peace, which are there to provide sanity to human beings, and not areas which can be claimed for conflict. Okay? Here is a question for you. You can try to attempt this one. And now another interesting topic. This is about what is disease X and what WHO is doing about it. Okay, this relates to GS2 and GS3 because disease X is also a communicable disease. So Just as something that we don't know, we call it X. Suppose a variable X or suppose a variable Y. Similarly, a disease which is not known of completely yet, but we know that something like this could exist in future, could come in the future, has already exhibited a lot of signs in the past, that is known as disease X. So it was contemplated for the first time by WHO in 2018, where it said that it is a form of unknown pathogen which is capable of causing not just mild devastation but epidemic or pandemic such as corona. It took a lot of time for us to understand the exact strain of corona and then to create a medicine, create a vaccine out of it, right? That time causes a lot of death, and similar cases now happening in Democratic Republic of Congo. So there is an unclassified epidemic which has come over there, which has claimed over 400 lives. The exact reason is not known yet, so this could be a potential disease X. And actually, if we look back to last 80 years since 1940, we'll be able to see that more than 300 infectious diseases have emerged and they have been identified, taking quite a lot of time by the health professionals. And therefore, we see a rise in these type of infectious disease, especially with the current times because of deforestation, because of urbanization and climate change, which specifically impacts the tropical areas. For example, the African countries, the South Asian countries. So India is also at the beset here. And here we have seen that the disease X could start from anywhere, not just from the tropical country, from the subtropical country as well. And it has the potential to have disastrous impact all over the world. For example, the COVID-19 epidemic. Okay, so there are two classifications of this disease X. It was contemplated for the first time in 2018, followed up by an epidemic of Ebola. Ebola, which happened in the Western African nations, it lasted from 2014 to 2016, causing more than lakhs of deaths over there. So there could be two categories of this disease X. The primary idea is that the pathogen is not known. So the two category among this one would be that the pathogen is not known, but the side effect could be known, right? Their impact could be known. Second is neither the pathogen is known nor the side effect or not the impact is known. So broadly, disease X would be divided into these two forms. But the second question would be that from where exactly this disease X could be coming. So according to WHO, it could either be coming from the zoonotic viruses, which is most likely because as seen from the data, in the last 80 years, about 70% of the total diseases have come from zoonotic sources only, which have impacted, basically got transmitted from animals to humans. It could be coming from the latent viruses, something which has been hidden since million and billion of years. For example, hidden in the freezing temperatures of permafrost, and suddenly because of global warming, because of melting of the glacier, they could suddenly come up, right? Next is synthetic viruses, something which could be created in the laboratory and could be used as a biological weapon. So the likelihood could be from anywhere of this disease X. So what is required? What is required is, first of all, their prediction and timely prediction and preparedness for the same. So regarding prediction, this disease X is specifically challenging because of the challenges faced in the prediction of it. First reason is because we have a lot of pathogens that are still undiscovered. We might not even know that such an organism could exist and that could cause such a big epidemic, right? Second is there is increasing zoonotic spillovers. Why? Because of deforestation, we are encroaching upon their lands. Of course, a lot of disease from the bats, from the apes, etc. could be coming to us. Next, climate change is altering the disease dynamics and expanding the vectors. For example, malaria, dengue, etc. And also risks from antimicrobial resistance is there, bioterrorism is there, accidental lab leak could also be there, which could give rise to all these three types of viruses, right? Then there is obviously advancement in genomic sequencing and artificial intelligence. So ma'am, where is all of that going? The problem is it still has limited abilities to great extent. Why? Because if we don't know something, it will take a lot of time first to understand it, examine it, and then to create a preventive measure out of it. So in that sense, because of the entire vastness of the unknown, we are still limited as to how are we going to use these existing technologies. So what WHO has been doing? WHO has created a priority list. See, the healthcare resources are very limited and the diseases could be coming from enormous amount of sources, right, which we never have imagined of. So WHO has put priority pathogen list, including diseases like Ebola, Marburg, Nipah, and Disease X, so that for them, the researches, funding, policy efforts across the global arena could be prioritized above any other disease. Okay. Next is, what are the measures for preparedness? So first of all, we need to strengthen the surveillance so that we understand from where exactly this virus has come up. We identify it quickly, we genome sequence it quickly, and then create healthcare infrastructure. This is very important, especially for providing preventive healthcare, for relieving from the symptoms. And then rapid response platform should be created. One such platform is created by Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. Okay, so what do? They create prototype pathogen platform. So these pick up any pathogen, and then they try to create vaccines within 100 days of the identifying of the disease. So this is done by CEPI, Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. Now looking at this data, will you now be able to answer this one? What is Pandemic X and what could be the answer of this prelims booster? Let me know in the comment section. Now our next topic, students, is very interesting because we have got finally something to learn from the Beijing, the capital of China. Okay, so we are going to learn something from Beijing because of certain reasons, and especially in the domain of air pollution, because see, what is happening is we've got similar economic parity. They are also economically developing nation, we are also developing. Population wise we are same, we have got similar population sources, similar population troubles from motor vehicles, from industry, especially driven by the coal thermal power plants. Construction we are taking up a lot of because we are developing in nature, and we cannot afford a lot of sustainable climate friendly solutions also. So more or less the countries are similar, and still we see them poles apart in terms of air quality that they have. Let's have a look. Beijing in 2015 had 10 years back had air quality index of 144. Not at all good, right? Currently it has got reduced by 1/3 in just 10 years. India used to have an air quality of about 144 in 2015, and in 2024, we have got a very similar one only. So in 10 years, we have not improved, even we have got worse. And Delhi has never seen a cleaner winter, right? So therefore, we have got a lot to learn from Beijing here. So as you can see that from 2015, as the data represents, that Beijing has drastically reduced its air pollution, and specifically from the year of 2017 to the year of 2021, and now it has finally stabilized it. Delhi, on the other hand, has been seeing surges, dips, and again maintaining the plateau, right? So we have not seen a lot of changes in the terms of Delhi. This is another interesting data regarding the major pollutant PM 2.5, and which suggests that in Delhi, the motor vehicles go on for a 60% write-off for emitting the PM 2.5, whereas only 31% is emitted from motor vehicles in China, in Beijing. So Beijing is doing pretty well, right? So what exactly Beijing did? So Beijing was very irritated by the fact that we are rising on air pollution and we do not want to breathe bad air. So they started a war against the pollution in the form of a 3-phased air action plan from 1998 to 2017. Herein, you will see that they started working on 3 sectors. On the sector of energy, transportation, and industry and construction. Why? Because from data analysis, they realized that these are the areas which are giving us most of the pollutants. So first of all, they identify the key sources. Energy and coal contributed to 22% of PM 2.5, transportation 31%, construction and industry 33%. So they had this data with them. Now they targeted these 3 industries particularly. How? So energy, coal mein, they said that whatever thermal power plants we are going to have ultra low emission upgrades in the power plant, and we are going to replace residential coal heating by solar power plants or some cleaner form of energy. In transportation, they said that we will be retrofitting vehicles which are having huge pollution capacity, which is basically those having diesel in them. So we will be having diesel particulate filters, which is not there in India, by the way. Next, they subsidize the scrapping of old polluting vehicles, which now India has started doing with the motor vehicle policy, and rapid expansion of subway and the bus network, which is very extensive in China, in Beijing. Especially if you go over there, most of the people are traveling through these public transports only. Next is they targeted their industries and their construction. How can we do? We need to set up standards for the industries and make it very stringent for them so that they carefully adhere to it, right? That's not so in the case of India. So they tightened the environmental standards. They promoted them, subsidized them for adopting the green construction practices. For example, having green walls so that they can absorb the carbon dioxide. Next, video monitoring with penalties for violators. So just in case how we see for the violation of vehicles, violation of traffic rules in Delhi. So similarly, they used to do it for the climate, for the pollution violators also. And the most important thing, unlike how in India, there is always a rift between center and the states. State is blaming center, Delhi is blaming Punjab and Haryana, right? So on and so forth. In their case, they called for regional collaboration between the 5 most polluting provinces that were causing a lot of pollution. So all of them contributed in order to incorporate these 3-phase policies. And the results are right in front of you. Their emissions drastically fell down. SO2, the main emission from the thermal power plant, got reduced up to 83%. Can you imagine that? PM 2.5, 59% drop down was seen. And in the case of Delhi, you're still seeing the same winters, the same pollution, the same smog. So what India can learn? So on a lighter note, see, the first thing is, we also need to focus on the 3 areas which are again the key polluting areas of India: the transportation system, the energy system, and the industry and the construction areas. So of course, in transportation, what we can do an integrated bus and metro development system. Okay, because if you go in a road in Delhi, you will find it very hard to drive or to cross the road even, because यहीं से buses भी आ रही है, फिर यहाँ से गाड़ी भी आ जाती है, फिर ऊपर से metro भी निकल जाती है. So it is so clustered because they are not working in tandem, in cognizance with each other. That is a requirement. We need to integrate the bus and the metro system, which will improve the last mile connectivity also. Okay? It will help in economic growth of the city also. Next, scrap the old vehicles through subsidies. Don't just ban them, because banning them, which means कोई और दूसरी गाड़ी खरीद लेगा. But by subsidizing them, they will be able to move towards greener transport more gradually. Okay. Then encourage cycling and walking lanes. So they have created, Delhi में तो इतना है भी नहीं, but let's say in my city in Bhopal, they have got a lot of walking lanes, cycling lanes, and people are actually following it. But in Delhi, they don't even have the space of creating cycling and walking lanes. They should be on priority creating it and then incentivizing people to use them. Just for example, they can have an app, jitni bari aapne cycling kari, you can get coins in it and then you can take money out of it. So such interventions can be done by government. Next is energy overhaul. 60% of the energy comes from thermal power plants. So we need to transition from the coal-based electricity to solar-based electricity. Government is trying to do that, but let's see how are we trying to implement that on spirit. Next, regional cooperation, especially among the NCR states, so that Punjab doesn't blame Haryana, Haryana doesn't blame UP, UP doesn't blame Delhi, Delhi doesn't blame all of them. This is not required. So regional cooperation is required. So for that, what do we need to have? An inter-coordination committee can be created. Right? Then public awareness and accountability is important, because it is the citizens eventually who will be suffering the most, who will be enduring the most, and at the same time, because of lack of awareness, they are the ones who are contributing to this pollution the most, right? So that is important, and political will and government accountability is the main thing. See, the reason for this is, as you can see, end of the day, it is a government expenditure which makes a whole lot of difference. In the case of China, look at the expenditure that they have brought into the table. Financial investment from 2013 to 2017 has gone up from 1% to 18% or to 18 billion yuan. That is a huge amount of money, right? And that is why all these changes were made. So similar government intervention, government accountability, government will needs to be there in Indian side also. They should be willing to loosen up their pockets a bit. And in our country, what are we doing? We're just blaming each other. Nobody's taking the responsibility of actually devolving the fund to take the transitioning steps. So therefore, government funding is required for that, government will is required, political will is required from the side of the NCR states. Okay. Now from international relations, we have got an interesting news. This is from Sri Lanka's fisheries minister, who has said that bottom trawling by Indian fishermen must stop. The question is, was it already not banned? Are we still following it? What exactly causes the fishery spat or conflict between India and Sri Lanka? Let us have a look. So first of all, we'll go through some of the places in news because we have to cover prelims pointer. So here is a Park Bay. Okay, this is Park Bay and this is Gulf of Mannar. And here you will find the Rameshwaram Setu. Here you will find the Bay of Bengal. So the Park Bay and Bay of Bengal is connected by the Park Strait. Okay, now of course here is Sri Lanka, here is India. So there has to be a maritime boundary. Now this maritime boundary is somewhere here, as you can see. The problem with this is fishermen and ocean knows no boundary because you cannot actually demarcate any fencing around it, right? So very often it happens that fishermen who could be here will very easily get drifted towards this area, and the moment he gets drifted towards this area, he will be arrested by Sri Lankans, right? And that is the problem mainly happening. Another one is Jaffna Peninsula. Okay, then we have Rameshwaram and the contested Kachativu Island. Now please understand, please look at the location of Kachativu. Very, very close to the maritime boundary, and the fact that India has given up the rights of Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka now. So when the Indian fishermen go to Kachativu Island, they get arrested more frequently, right? And this has been a conflict between India and Sri Lanka since quite some time. So what is the origin of this conflict? There's something about Kachativu Island because it has been asked by UPSC Prelims and PYQ. You can read this out in handout. I've already told you this. Next, why fishermen are getting arrested? Why Indian fishermen especially are getting arrested? Because of few things. First of all, let's understand the origin story. So what happened that both of these countries created an international maritime boundary which was brokered by UN clause. Okay. The entire thing was done between 1974 and 1976. In fact, in 1974, this Kachativu Island, previously of India, they gave it to Sri Lanka as a form of good gesture. Okay, so now it comes under the territory of Sri Lanka only. Okay, the problem was that the Tamil Nadu government, Tamil Nadu Assembly was not consulted for it. Okay, and now they will also be trying to create a little bit of problem in indirect ways. Okay, now what happened? They started abiding. Both of the fishermen started adhering to this international maritime boundary until Sri Lanka's civil war comes up. So between 1983 to 2009, a lot of civil rift was going on in Sri Lanka, because of which the entire police forces and the surveillance forces were involved in taking care of the internal security. So they were actually not taking much care of the coastal areas, okay, of the maritime boundary. And as a result, it saw influx from the Indian fishermen, knowingly, unknowingly, into their maritime boundary. Then it was reported that a lot of Tamil Nadu fishermen, unchecked, have crossed the boundary and have started encroaching upon their islands. Not only that, they were also causing resource thefting in a way that they were doing bottom trawling. So bottom trawling means कि आप एक बहुत बड़ा net ले लेते हो, not just small fishing net, but it's like a machine with the help of which you drain away the entire marine floor. So उससे सारे resources उसके बाहर आ जाते हैं, which means it's not basic fishing activity that you are doing. You are doing commercial exploitation of the entire marine resources. That is why bottom trawling was banned from the side of Sri Lanka. But still, in many illegal ways, it was getting conducted. ठीक है, फिर उसके बाद आता है Tamil Nadu Marine Fishing Regulation in 1983. Now this one said that the Tamil Nadu, the fishermen, have the right to go about 3 nautical miles ahead again. Okay, so they have got this right कि आप थोड़ा सा और आगे जाके fishing कर सकते हो. They were also not knowing that when they will go for the fishing, they will not just do the basic fishing. 5-6 fish लेके नहीं आएंगे, पूरी 5 लाख fish लेके आ जाएंगे. So this naturally started causing a lot of rift. To resolve this, a joint working group was formed between Indian government and the Sri Lankan government, which eventually resulted out to be very ineffective. कोई अच्छा conclusion इससे निकला नहीं, ठीक है? Now, do you know that in 2017, Sri Lanka has already banned all the form of bottom trawling, ना सिर्फ दूसरी countries की, but अपने खुद की countries की भी. Okay, and therefore my dear student, this news has come up. Okay, now here is a prelims booster practice question for you. Now this is going to help you with your mains pointers also. Okay, how to exactly address this India Sri Lanka fishermen conflict issue. Okay, so try to solve this question, let me know in the comment section. And then we have another economics topic, which is about retail inflation moderating to 5.5% in the November after a new high in October. So first of all, what is an inflation? Inflation is general rise in the prices of goods and services that has been produced by an economy. So it's the general average rise in the prices, right? That is inflation. There are various measures to calculate this inflation. It could be done from consumer price index and wholesale price index, GDP deflator, but we are here to read about the retail inflation. So inflation can be calculated from various sources. See, let's say country has produced a lot of product, a lot of goods have been produced. सबसे पहले वो wholesale market में जाएगा. So when you are calculating the inflation from the wholesale level, then we do it with the help of wholesale price index. Here, because only goods can be created in wholesale levels, services तो नहीं हो सकती है. So इसीलिए it is only for goods, right? Then if you are if you are calculating the inflation from the retail market, that is directly from the producer and consumer interface, shop में जाके, grocery में जाके, mall में जाके, when you are calculating कि कितना inflation हुआ है. Let's say कि कुरकुरे का पैकेट पहले, let's say मैगी का पैकेट पहले 10 रुपीज़ में आता था, now 12 रुपीज़ में आ रहा है. So ये मैं कहाँ पे calculate कर रही हूँ? In the mall, in the grocery store, in there, this is the retail inflation that I am calculating. And of course, to calculate it, the index that I use is consumer price index. Okay, so when I'm saying that this data has dropped down to 5.5%, this is the CPI index. Okay, now what is the difference between WPI and CPI? First of all, what it intends to calculate. So WPI intends to calculate the changes in prices of commodity at the wholesale level and CPI at the retail level, right? The publishing bodies are also different. WPI is calculated by industry because industrial level पे wholesale bulk मिलता है. Therefore, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, within which there is an Office of Economic Advisor that will be creating your WPI, and the CPI will be calculated and created by National Statistic Office under MOSPI. Okay, then WPI covers goods only, goods and services by CPI. We know about it, right? And the base year is important for them. Both of अभी के लिए दोनों के base year 2011-12, इसके लिए 2011-12 and इसके लिए 2012 है. But then again, in CPIs also there are different types of CPIs. The urban non-manual employee CPI, there is CPI for rural laborers, agricultural laborer, industrial workers. So the one which is created by National Statistic Office, Ministry of Statistic and Program Implementation, this is this one. Okay, इसका base year 2012 है. But ये तीनों जो हैं, इनका agricultural laborer का, इनका जो base year है 2016 है, and at the same time they are calculated by Labor Ministry. They are calculated by Labor Bureau. Okay, so I hope you've understood the difference also. Now some important terms for you. What is inflation, disinflation, deflation, shrinkflation and stagflation, important for UPSC. सबसे पहले तो इन्फ्लेशन को कैलकुलेट करने के लिए CPI, WPI, डिफ्लेटर मेजर्स यूज करते हैं. डिफ्लेटर मेजर जनरली बेटर प्रूफ होता है बिकॉज इट ट्राइज टू कैलकुलेट द इंटायर नॉमिनल GDP अपॉन द इंटायर रियल GDP. सो इससे आपको मेजर मिल जाते हैं इन्फ्लेशन का. नाउ लुक एट दिस ग्राफ. सो यहाँ पे ये बेस प्राइस लेवल है, ये जनरल प्राइस लेवल है. जनरल प्राइस लेवल से जब एवरेज इंक्रीज हो रहा है तो इसको हम बोलेंगे इन्फ्लेशन. ये जिस रेट पे हो रहा है, लेट्स से यहाँ पे 2% पे हो रहा है, यहाँ पे 3% से हो रहा है, यहाँ पे 5% से हो रहा है, यहाँ पे 6% से हो रहा है, दिस इज द इन्फ्लेशन रेट. ओके, दिस रेट इज कैलकुलेटेड बाय CPI. नाउ लेट्स से दिस रेट स्टार्ट्स ड्रॉपिंग ऑफ, व्हिच मींस देयर इज स्टिल इन्फ्लेशन इन द इकोनॉमी बट द रेट इज गोइंग डाउन, व्हिच मींस 5%, फिर 4%, फिर 3%. सो इन्फ्लेशन इज देयर बट द रेट इज गोइंग डाउन. दिस इज नोन एज डिसइन्फ्लेशन. And next is, think about a balloon. If you blow it up, it will inflate in size, that is inflation. And if you squeeze it, अगर air बाहर आ जाएगी तो it will deflate, which means the economy is shrinking now, which means the general prices are going down. So अगर general prices they start going down, negative में growth होने लग जाए, then that is known as deflation. Then what is shrinkflation? So sometimes what happens, let's say a product, let's say Parle G, and it is actually happening. Let's say Parle G का पहले ये old biscuit आता था, सेम पैकेट था, 10 रुपीज़ का ही था, और अभी जो पैकेट आ रहा है वो भी सेम पैकेट है, उसमें वो भी 10 रुपीज़ का ही है. यू विल फील कि कोई इन्फ्लेशन हुआ ही नहीं है. बट एक्चुअली उन्होंने क्या किया, पहले के पार्ले जी बिस्किट में जहाँ पे 6 बिस्किट्स थे, अभी आपको सिर्फ 4 बिस्किट मिलेंगे. सो व्हाट दे हैव डन, दे हैव नॉट डिक्रीज the price, they have decreased the intrinsic quantity. That is known as shrinkflation. And then what is stagflation? Now this has been a PYQ, so this is a question that you have to answer. What is the condition of stagflation in an economy? Again, here is a question, a very simpler one. You will just answer it by your own. No need to write in the comment section. And finally, a very important current affair, which is Gukesh becoming the youngest world chess champion in the world just at the age of 18. Very proud moment for India. This is current event of national importance. Why are we reading about chess, ma'am? Because in 2023, UPSC has asked question about chess Olympiad. Because for the first time, Olympiad of this sort was getting conducted in India. Of course, nobody read about it. Very few of the students were able to answer it. And eventually the answer was that they have, shuffled these two cups, the name of these two cups. So it just been shuffled, so the correct answer is only 2. But anyway, don't fret about chess Olympiad. That is not an important theme, but this news is an important theme. Okay, so now let's go into the world of chess. So generally they say that the current chess format is derived from Spain, from the southern Europe, but that is not the complete truth because its origin are rooted into Indian mythology and in ancient Indian systems. As you can see, a lot of paintings were there of, Akbar playing chess with his wife, Krishna playing with Radha, and of course in Mahabharata, the entire chess game that went off. So traces of chesses were seen in India. So dated back to 1500 years, where it was named as Chaturanga. Chaturanga then went to Persia. Persia, because of the Islamic influence, there they renamed as Shatranj. Then because of the Arab conquest from Persia, it moved because the Arab went to the southern Europe, they started conquesting that region. So they started playing it there in the Spain and Italy also. So there it captured the European attention and it became a European game from there. So from 15th century, the current form of chess has taken place, especially coming from Spain. Okay, and now even the computers have become self-learned in playing games. So one of the grandmasters was defeated by the IBM Deep Thought, who played its first game in 1988. These are the computers playing and winning chess games. But most importantly is our India and how we are performing in chess. So you know about Pragnananda, you know about Vidit, Gujarati, D. Gukesh and Kuneru Hampi. They have become grandmasters at very early age, 12 to 15 age. Why are we highlighting this? Because the stalwart of chess in India, Vishwanathan Anand, who by the way also won India's first Khel Ratna award. This was previously known as Rajiv Gandhi Award, now known as Khel Ratna Award. He was the first sports person to get the Khel Ratna Award, and he also is the first sports person to win Padma Vibhushan in India. So he became grandmaster at the age of 18 years, but now we see because of rising popularity, youngsters are now becoming grandmasters at the age of 12 to 15 years. Not only that, we are continuously ranking at a higher position, now currently at the rank 4 in world when it comes to international chess, having an average 2,666 points. I'll highlight this because an average good chess player, international level chess player, has to get an average of 1,550 points. And we are at an average of 2,600 points. Therefore, we have got more than 60 grandmasters in our country. And not only that, 1/3 of the top 30 junior chess players are from our country only. And one stalwart who is mentored by none other than but Vishwanathan Anand himself is D. Gukesh. Okay, so you'll remember this current affair. Now, what are the titles and rankings of the game of chess? So, if somebody attains at least 200 of the total points, then he becomes candidate master. D. Gukesh became this in the last year. Then FIDE master on scoring FIDE rating of 2300. International master on scoring 2400 and above, and Grand Master on scoring more than 2500. So here is when he becomes, this is the highest title a chess player can attain, and the youngest one to get it. The youngest one to get the title of World Chess Champion is D. Gukesh in the world. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the discussion, students. Thank you so much and have a nice day till we meet again.